When it comes to designing an HPC system, there will be two main categories of networks in your design. There will be the public network and then the private network. After completing the initial lab VM setup, this concept should be familiar to you. In the screen grab from that chapter, the blue cable represents the external network or the public-facing network, and the green cable is an internal network, otherwise called a private network. It can get a little complicated when you're talking about public, private, external, internal, WAN, and LAN, because you can actually have a private WAN, a public WAN, a private LAN, a public LAN, and internal or private LAN, and even an external or public LAN. But you have no reason to panic. For our purposes and for most of our HPC system designs, you will focus on having what has been illustrated in the lessons for the virtual lab. That is, an internal private network and an external public network, which will be either a WAN or a LAN depending on your design and the environment that you're building the system in. But what's important is that there is an internal private component and the external or public component. You will actually need both. Now let's take a quick look at an analogy to help describe the meaning of these two network concepts of private and public. So let's first think about your private home. All our homes look like this, right? Typically we have controlled access like a gate or a key or whatever, and it's typically not visible outside the controlled access. And it might be considered to be more secure because of the controlled access, but this is really just a perception, because even with it being secure, you know that you can still suffer break-ins. And conveniently in this picture, you can also see a swimming pool, but that would be your private pool that only people on your private property can dip into. An example of a private network would be perhaps your Wi-Fi at home. A public place, on the other hand, would be like this public swimming pool. It has free uncontrolled access, which means anyone can come and use it. It is probably going to be visible from outside, but not always the case. But more importantly, everyone and what they're doing in this public space is visible in some form to anyone else that is also in that public space. Typically, it's also going to be a lot less secure because you do not put any measures in place to control access. That means you don't screen or deny entry to anyone, even if those people coming in might actually be criminals planning to commit a crime. That swimming pool is also a public pool, so that means that anyone can dip into it. Once the pool is full, it is full. Even if by some chance you had a special expectation to have access to that pool, once it is full, you won't be able to get in, period. An example of a public network would be your university Wi-Fi or maybe airport Wi-Fi. Although right now, I guess airport Wi-Fis aren't being used by anyone. Just one note is that a public network is not to be confused with an unsecured private network. Although an unsecured private network might still be open access, even though you might intend a network to be private, or you've denoted it as a private network, if it's not explicitly configured, or even if it's badly configured, it will be vulnerable. Most unconfigured networks are probably a little safer than a badly configured network, because most unconfigured networks nowadays usually have default settings that err on the side of unnecessary precautions, rather than a badly configured network, which might be foolishly or unwittingly opening up access. So take careful note about how you configure your network and how you secure your devices on your networks.